How do we start to accept what makes us us?
Ultimately, purpose feels like bringing my full self and my deepest connection to self to literally whatever's happening in front of me.
Being authentic, it is the thing that makes you magnetic, the thing that makes you manifest. From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacy Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. So we are just finishing up week 1 of the Authenticity Challenge here at To Be Magnetic. Don't worry, it is not too late to join. We also have our big end of year sale going on right now, so you can lock in the lowest prices of the season. But in week 1, we have really examined our new authentic code. Now, we had some new exercises around finding your magic and finding your gifts and strength and getting that reflection back from other people so we can start to truly see our essence, our gifts, what we bring to the table, our value. I know my authentic code shifted slightly, especially around how I organized it. I wound up using the ChatGPT prompt that we had in there, and I was blown away of how they place things that actually felt even more aligned with my true soul essence in this season and chapter. And now as we go into week 2, we're really going to peel back all the places and spaces that we find it most difficult to be our authentic self. Because it's one thing to be authentic in our room, in our home, around close friends. It's another to be in new and different novel situations and still maintain that authenticity, still maintain our truth, not people pleasing, not conforming to different spaces and places that we're in, not trying to say the thing we think people want to hear because we want to be connected to them or drawn to them. That is what we are going to be deeply working on in week 2. Now, you're probably starting to have one of 3 things happen if you're doing this challenge alongside us. 1, you're probably getting a ton of pings about things you want to manifest, changes you want to make, things you want to embody. Keep writing them down. We have our manifestation pings list. Anything that comes through, any clarity, any notes of inspiration, write it on that list. The second thing that's probably going to come through is even more layers to your authentic self. You'll show little glimmers or pieces in different spaces, maybe new things that you're drawn to. Allow those to morph and change and keep adding them to your authentic code and your authenticity. And then the third thing is you're going to find the spaces and places that are glaring you in the face that do not feel authentic or no longer feel authentic. I know that I had this happen even on week 1 where I was like, whoa, the way that I'm going about handling this or doing this doesn't align anymore. It feels like this hamster wheel of burnout, and that doesn't feel good in my soul. What is the new? And even if we don't have the solution to it yet, just identifying the spaces that do not feel authentic, do not light us up, feel like a lot of resistance, that is what we're going to be manifesting a transformation in 2025. So keep note of all those things coming through. I'm really excited for today's episode because we're going to talk about why it is so hard to be authentic in every room and how do we maintain a true sense of self when we are in those different situations and so many nuances around that. And really how our authenticity is so deeply connected to our purpose. If you're someone that's confused on what they should do in life or what their purpose is or how to bring meaning back to things in a different way or how to really root down to something that's just pulling you forward, that's bigger than self, this connection to your authenticity is going to help you find it. So listen to the episode and then join us for the challenge. You can catch up and do week 1 and then join us for week 2 to really figure out how to be authentic in every room. We have the new authenticity archetypes exercise so you can figure out who you are tapping into, what essence you're tapping into to embody that truly authentic expression of self. I'm so excited for this one. I think it is so important and so timely at this season in life and in the world to really root down to what is the change and what is the hope on the other side of everything going on. And stay tuned at the end for a quick expander story to keep you motivated to keep going with the challenge. Enjoy.
And now a word from our partners.
If you have not heard of Arma colostrum, let me tell you why it has quickly become my absolute favorite superfood that I've been taking on a daily basis. Arma is an unrivaled nutrient powerhouse. It has 400 plus pure bioactives that are natural molecules that promote healthy function throughout the body. They include a host of protective antibodies, prebiotic compounds, strengthening peptides, amino acids, trace minerals, immunoglobulins, tissue growth factors, antioxidants, and other natural immune factors that work synergistically to enhance your health. This superfood is actually the first piece of nutrients that we receive, that all mammals receive from their mothers within 48 to 72 hours after giving birth. It is that nutrient-dense supplement to really help our bodies thrive, function, and grow to the best of our abilities. There are 5,000 plus studies on this stuff that really show at any age, taking and ingesting colostrum can help our bodies function on the highest level. Now, I started taking this over the summer and pretty much noticed results immediately. Bloating went down, digestion got better, and my immunity seemed to be a lot stronger. I would come across people with colds or sicknesses thinking I'd be coming down with it in a few days, and it seemed to have really supported my innate immune system. It is completely sustainably sourced from a family-owned dairy farm. They only use the surplus of colostrum, and they're able to remove any unnecessary compounds from the colostrum, like casein and fat, which is part of the reason that some dairy can be inflammatory to some people. I'm someone that's very sensitive to dairy, and anytime I have real dairy, I always wind up taking a lactate, but using colostrum, I've never had any issue with it at all. And in fact, it seems to protect me just as well as the dairy pill against some of the dairy that I eat. And part of the reason that that is happening and why I feel like it's been so effective is because it's helping to rebuild your barriers. We talk about having a really strong barrier protection in the lining of our mouth, our sinuses, our lungs, our gut. Our barriers house 80% of our immune system. It's the first line of defense against everything that we inhale and ingest from the outside world. So when you take Armra close to eating, inflammatory foods or being in an atmosphere where the air quality isn't as optimal, your barriers are tightening to help protect you from everything else going on. So this is one of my absolute favorite superfood products out there on the market. I think it is fantastic. I really see results from it. Feel free to ask me questions if you're curious about it. And we have a discount code for you guys. You can use the code TBM for 15% your first order. Again, that is code TBM for 15% off. And if you're interested, you can get the subscription. That way you won't ever run out and you can always have that immune support.
All right, on to the episode.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. We are here with Lacy and Janelle. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm excited. We're in the midst of our authenticity challenge, really grounding into who we authentically are, what authenticity even really means for us, how to connect with our authentic self, how to find it. And now we're going into this week where we're going to uncover what are the places and spaces that are in the way of your authenticity. And this phrase kind of came to mind of being authentic in every room. How do we maintain our center, maintain our authentic integrity, so to speak, when we're in those places that we typically hide away, shy away, play small? Because that's really where it's challenged. It's one thing to let yourself express your authenticity when you're by yourself or with your best friends. It's another to let yourself express it in new spaces. So I wanted to kick off with this topic and kind of just start with you guys. Have you guys felt chapters or spaces or places in your life where you've noticed, oh, when I'm around this type of archetype or when I'm in this type of space, it's harder for me to tap into my authenticity, or even in the past? I know, Lacy, you're very in your authenticity now, so you probably don't have very many spaces where that happens. But even in the past, thinking of your acting days, were there spaces when you were around people where you're like, I feel really authentic here, but then when I'm in this room, I'm like totally putting on mask and trying to fit in?
I think that's how I was all of the time, honestly,
Yeah.
back in the day, unless I was around maybe my mom or someone that I could be totally myself with, which, at that point wasn't even demasked, onion peeled, layered version of self. It wasn't even my authentic self. But I even think to a story such as when I very first started seeing clients within this work, I had to create a fake assistant, not because to be cool or anything like that or important, because I was so codependent. I didn't know how to say no to people. So it created this barrier for me to be like, I could say no. And it was never, ever to be important or cool. It was literally because no was excruciating to me. So if a client wanted to get in early, a press piece I didn't want to do, anything like that, it was really hard for me. So that's like a really big example of that.
That's so interesting you say that, because I remember starting to work for TBM. I was like, wow, Lacy has such an incredible fortified no, like an empowered
Mm.
no, no shame or backpedaling. Nope, that's not aligned. And like it moves with ease. And I remember feeling like I had been assistants early days in film and television, and how strong my no was on their behalf. But when it came to myself, same thing. It was like, oh, well, I don't know. Yeah, sure, I can do it. But then when I'm saying no for someone else, or I'm saying no for a brand or a podcast or whatever, easy, no problem. But when it's yourself, you're like, sure.
I know. Even now, God, I don't struggle anymore. It's so clear for me, but the way I communicate it, I even know now I have to pause and take a minute. And I know that with human design as well, because I'm an emotional authority. I now know how to not answer something right away if it's going to be difficult. So I only share that because I think there's degrees of authenticity in action, because I think there are a lot of ways where if you're not fully showing up as your authentic self in every room, there are things, protection and things in place that you can have, tools that will allow you to still be able to be in your authenticity. And this is a really good example. So I get asked about shit all of the time. I was literally voice noting Jessica this morning, being like, I feel like I'm drowning right now. I get 4 hours a day with care before this care picks up Teddy and takes over that so that I have the baby back. And that's to shower, to walk, to do anything with To Be Magnetic, to do anything in real estate. That's to like get back to anybody, respond to email, like 4 hours. And people will still ask me, I'll see in DMs and really successful people, that we all know of, have been on this podcast, will ask, do you think you have time that we could catch up over coffee and you could just mentor me of how you did shit? People are asking me stuff all of the time, all of the time. Can I pick your brain about this? And I'm like, no, I don't. I absolutely don't. And this really brings me to the authentic code. I look at my authentic code. I was just writing the email that is coming out and the week 1 of the challenge, and I filter everything through that. It is to me the best tool. If you're new here and you don't know about the authentic code, we're probably going to have a podcast episode or something on it. But to me, when you figure out what that is to you, I filter everything through it. Very first thing on it is family memories. My kids come before everything in my life, everything. And to me, To Be Magnetic, it is no longer a company or just something in my, it's the way I breathe these tools, and I filter everything through that. So that's something that we can get into later, but just tools that you can have, things you can say if you are in a room and you don't feel like you're showing up as authentically as you want to be, or as you are inside, you're not there yet. Even during this challenge, you're discovering and you're like, whoa, that space is so far. How I'm showing up versus my true authentic self, that is so far away. I just think we can talk about tools of things you can say, like, oh, let me get back to you on that, or whatever. We'll get into that stuff. But I just I wanted to like blob that all out, because I think even though I would say I'm potentially the most evolved in this work because I've been doing it the longest out of anybody who has, I still have to come up with tools for this kind of stuff to show up authentically all of the time. What about you, Janelle?
Yeah, I mean, in my past growing up, teens, early 20s, I was an absolute chameleon and got really good at it. How do I morph and bend to read the person I'm in front of and whatever they need me to be? So that was old me, and then you get tired. That doesn't work, and you burn out. And I don't know, in my own evolution, like spiritual evolution and self-evolution, the reality is in my hometown, where I'm in my hometown, I've gotten weirder. I just am weird compared to the culture I grew up in. And so for me now, it's really not new people or places or things. Like I'm really comfortable. But where I personally get triggered the most is people that knew the old me. And I'm so far from that version. So this happened literally a few nights ago that I was in a group and there was old friends there and they're still in my old culture. And you catch up and I'm like, here it is. And every time it feels like a little bit of like honestly, it's a little death that I go through of like,
Same.
buckle up. Okay, so I'm weird now, to you.
Yeah.
Not to me, but like to you, I am. And I know that there's all these judgments that I can see in their face that go off in their head as I start talking and I share authentically. And it does, it hurts. I'm not gonna lie, it still hurts. And also, I always will process and integrate, and I'm like, "No, I love who I am. That's okay." And I have to go through that process of what it ultimately is that I want to be seen, and I want that intimacy, and I want that connection. And it's this grief of like, oh, they're not going to be able to get me and see my heart. And so it's like, wow, what a bummer. It's just this sadness. And if I go even deeper with it, it's like family of origin wounds, where a lot of ways that my parents did see me, and there were also some ways that they didn't. So I know that ultimately when I deduce it, it's like, oh, I want to, have the experience of somebody to be with all of me and I be with all of them. And sometimes it's only 2 out of the 5 or 1 out of the 5. And with my best friends, it's 5 out of 5, right? But it's just that grief that you go through every time.
I'm so glad you're naming that because
Yeah.
I think that's such an important part of this process. And as you guys are listening in, especially if you're doing the challenge and starting to uncover who you are authentically, there is a process to moving into authenticity. I mean, one way to even just identify it is think about the ways that you've shifted or melded or people pleased or said what you thought people needed to say. I mean, I feel like my whole college identity was based off of TV shows I was seeing and like what was that show? The Girls Next Door with the Playboy bunnies. I was like, they're cool girls. Everybody loves them. I need platinum blonde hair. And I had platinum blonde hair.
Wow.
But then when I really rooted down over the years, I think maybe in my like mid 20s, having that moment of like, wait, I get to choose. I get to choose all the things that make me me. Do I even like this? Or is this race I'm chasing to try to be fit in with whatever everyone says is okay and cool and lovable and likable and popular and whatever? Can I actually make my own choice? I think for so long it felt like that's not even an option. So let's just keep going forward. And having that, I feel like there was a moment, maybe like 24, 25, where it was in a relationship that wasn't aligned, was around friend groups that weren't really aligned. And I was just walking around New York City by myself and I was like, oh, wait, I just like taking pictures of the sunset and the buildings around, doing these simple things. Like, I don't want to go to a club. I don't want to do this. I'm not even excited to do that. And letting my excitement and my joy be my guidepost. Wow, this is so cool. Like, I can actually choose me. What a fun revelation.
I resonate exactly with what both of you are saying. And Janelle, that's my goal. That's what I'm taking through this challenge is how to stay entirely authentic and not people please, which I am. I'm unapologetically myself around the people closest to me, but I still have a really hard time with boundaries, asking for what I need. But it's so interesting because everything you're saying, Jessica, essentially is why those people that you named, Janelle, that when you're in those spaces, why they don't get it and they don't get you because they haven't even had the licensing within themselves yet. Most of us haven't. We are a product of our programming from every facet of life, media, familial, religion, I mean, name it, everything. And a lot of people have never had the licensing to do what we're even going to do in this challenge. That's not even normal for people, And it's so funny. Sierra, who does this work, she's a part of my community in Mendocino. We were laughing because she's really walking through this manifestation with me. She lives in the town that I'm an escrow on this place. And her uncle has been the fish and game ward there forever. And I'm like, just please let people know my intention of this place because I know it's really important to the town. Like, I'm going to restore it. It'll be for community. And she was laughing because her uncle was like, who is this person? And she's like, how do I answer that question? And I don't even have an elevator pitch for what we do, what I do. I'm always like, when people ask, what do you do? I'm like, well, I'm out there. That's how I started, and it's so interesting what you're saying because I think a lot of people, the demographic who even listens to our podcast can identify with that of being a little out there. But really what's happening is everybody's unique and different. Just not everyone's had the licensing to go against all the programming they're receiving. That's like the key thing we're talking about here. Just even giving yourself the licensing to have that moment that you had, Jessica, walking, through New York at that, like, wait, what? Letting what lights you up be your guidepost. So many people don't, they're so numbed out based on what society has told them, what we have to be, plus, the TV they're watching, plus the friend group, what they're doing in order to be accepted. It's crazy how many people who have never had this licensing. And it's crazy that it's the thing that makes you manifest being authentic. It is the thing that makes you magnetic. It's crazy.
I mean, it's wild too, because once I started making decisions from that place, manifested dream new apartment after breaking up with the person that wasn't aligned, and then manifested an amazing new relationship and manifested moving to LA and having a place to stay. The universe was like, we're going to reward you. Finally, you're listening. You get it.
Inner peace too, right? Like
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
there's just a difference of, I remember like probably early 20s, there was a sense of like, I really couldn't be with myself by myself. Always distracted, always trying to whatever. And I think that that's a big indicator when someone's not really able just to be with themselves if they're not connected to their authenticity. If they're always kind of distracted, I mean, it can be nervous system dysregulation, all of that, but there is something to be able to like have it be quiet, not be distracted, and to truly just be with yourself and go in and be like, what's really there? Not just emotions, but what do I really think and what do I really want? And, you have to really spend time with yourself.
I think that's such a important shift and acknowledgement is recognizing when it's like constant numbing, constant next excitement, next trip, next party, next event, next social, whatever, filling. And it's like, what is the running from? And oftentimes it's that running from self. And I'm going to tell you, once you sit with yourself, you may have big emotions come up, but it is never as bad as all the time you spend running from yourself.
All the time you spent, numbing. Yeah.
It's just never as bad ever. It's actually so much, you're like, that was it? That's what I've been running from for like a decade? That emotion? Okay, great. The world just opens up on the other side of it. It is that joyous time of year again when Osea's gift sets are going on sale. This year, they have some incredible holiday gift sets that you can get for a friend, or personally, I'm getting them for myself as a special treat for my authentic self. These limited edition gift sets include some of the best-selling products from Osea's body and skincare. One that I am personally loving is their Super Glow Body Set. That includes their Undaria Algae Body Wash, which I've said in previous episodes how incredible that body cleanser is at keeping your skin hydrated. Their Hyaluronic Body Serum, which adds more hydration and moisture to your skin, and then you can top it off with the Undaria Body Oil, all in one amazing gift set. Which is an incredible deal because the Undaria Algae Body Oil is one of the best products I've ever used on my skin. My skin gets so dry in the winter, and then I take super hot showers because I'm always freezing, and my skin just shrivels up. Adding this body oil back on my skin gives it life again. It is more supple and soft, and I hate the feeling of scratchy skin in your clothes in the winter, scratchy feet in your socks. It's the worst. So adding their hyaluronic body serum and their Undaria algae body oil to my skin is giving it life again. It feels amazing and luxurious, like you just got back from the spa. Give the gift of glow this holiday season with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. If you have been thinking of trying the products yourself, or you just want to give an amazing gift this season, you can save 32% on their holiday gift sets, plus an additional 10% off with our code. Get 10% off with your first order site-wide with code MAGNETIC10, all caps, MAGNETIC 10 at checkout, MAGNETIC10, MAGNETIC. And go to OseaMalibu.com or the link in our show note to get your holiday gift set. So, Janelle, I called you after there was this one event. Basically, I felt not at all nervous, so excited to go to this event, just felt myself, whatever. And I get in the room, and it was like the total cool girl persona from my high school, a room full of these girls. And I was like, oh, I am feeling nervous all of a sudden. And it's flooded back. I am a teenager and I need to fit in. I couldn't maintain my center. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, let's try my breathing exercises. What do I need to do to like snap out of this? Because I do not like this feeling. And I did pretty okay. And then I called Janelle after. I was like, okay, what is that? It felt like a total nervous system takeover. Because mentally, I wasn't really thinking like, oh, these are the popular girls from high school. But somatically, my body immediately was like, shallow breath, not really breathing as much, kind of very, very quiet, very shy, wasn't really speaking, afraid to speak, like nervous to speak. So what happens when we feel, and we got this question a lot, I feel so authentic, magnetic by myself with my friends. I'm honoring my authentic code every day. And then I get in this situation and then it's like, where did it go? Did it even exist at all?
Yeah, it's not feeling safe. And we're all going to have our different triggers of what type of person triggers us. I'm thinking like, oh, this is a potentially, not whatever, a room of Regina Georges, which are scary, right?
Yeah.
This type of person is cutthroat and not safe, you know? And so, of course, we're going to either go into freeze or fight or flight or whatever. Anytime we don't feel safe, that's what's going to happen. And so kind of regardless of this person's safe or not, because sometimes we start talking, we're like, oh, they are safe. I misjudge them, right? But how do we connect to our inner safety and to ourselves and self-acceptance that is going to anchor us to show up authentically, regardless of this person's safe or not? And honestly, act accordingly with boundaries if they really aren't safe in some way.
So, okay, starting with self acceptance, what gets in the way? Because there is definitely an older version of me that may have showed up in that room and immediately tried to just impress them based off what I think that they value, show off, try to speak their language, survival of connection, I guess it is. And instead, now doing all the work that I've done, I was like, nope, we don't need to do that. We can just talk about the things that we love. We may get a few weird glances, manifestation, what? That's okay. We can just still stand in that essence, even though it feels really uncomfortable. How do we start to accept what makes us us? And that, for me in that instance is like accepting that I'm kind of a spiritual, weirdo, quirky girl. I'm not really the popular girl. I like some popular things, but I'm not really like the popular girl. That's not what I would identify with. How do you just own that without one being better or worse than the other?
Well, the thing that comes to my mind for this very reason, because even though like I have always been sort of the popular girl, I've always been the weird one. I'm not like the quintessential. I remember there was a point, and I've talked about this on the podcast, where if I would go into West Hollywood, I would start to hyperventilate because everyone looked perfect. Everybody did, and that's just not who I am. But I had friend groups and stuff like that are that, and so it was interesting. There was when I was really, and this was very early on when I was doing the TPM stuff, there had been the launch of a digital workshop, but it was still literally me in a closet recording DIs. And I think there was only one person helping me at the time, and I came up with this, and it was like an authentic something projection. And basically it's creating, you take your archetypes of your truest authentic self and you meld them together so that you know how to show up authentically in every space, how to dress, how to represent the essence of you in the material plane. And so, like, for instance, if I were to describe mine now, let's put it, I'm definitely like a 60-year-old Japanese woman meets maybe an Italian cowboy, has a baby with a Victorian woman, whatever. Like, I came up with my thing, right? Like that, so that when I go into spaces like Max, he had this launch recently, his older brother, and it's like all these really cool people. I'm not a hipster anymore, right? Like all these hipsters are there, and all I do is I just tap into this persona of mine, these archetypes, my essence, in an effort to show up fully myself there, but confidently and totally who I am. And that was like a tool that was really useful for a long time in the spaces like you're talking about, Jessica, because I'm a Leo rising. So I'm such a peacock in a lot of ways, And so I can really be my full peacock self that's going to look nothing like any hipsters or West Hollywood hot girls, or like now a lot of work done influencers on Instagram. I'm not those things. I'm me. So like, how's my version of feeling super confident as my authentic self in all of these different spaces? And I have to look to my grandmother, who was probably my first expander. She was always a really full-bodied, big-bodied woman, but like the coolest, most interesting, odd style, very interesting design, was always much more well-spoken, self-educated in the room than anybody else, who could hold a conversation with like any doctor, any whatever, and know more about a subject. And so it's like, I wonder if we put this exercise somewhere.
I was like, the self-love DI, let's add it in.
Yeah, in the challenge, because I think that can help us anchor in those moments when we're on this journey of peeling all of these layers to really get to who we are, but then show up confidently anywhere we're going, any space we're in, whether it's with new friends, old friends, whatever, like to be able to really be ourselves, like have something to anchor to. So that's just something that comes to mind.
I think of when you just mentioned style, I have this friend from college, and she just is this like thrift store genius. And she dresses like an eccentric 80-year-old in the back. Like, she's phenomenal style. And you're like, how did you? And it's like, she loves what she picked and wore. She's had so much haters, and she doesn't give a shit. if anybody else like it, because her self-acceptance for what she loves is so deep. And that's in the area of self-expression, but just in the area of soul and self and all these other aspects. It's like when we're in a crowd, the cracks in our own self-acceptance show. If we're not self-accepted, when someone else rejects us or we have perceived rejection, we'll crumble because it's we don't have it at our core. But if our core is strong and the deepest self-acceptance in whatever the area is, we'll anchor and root in, and we could be wildly different than the crowd we're around, but we're like, we're good, it's fine. And ultimately, if our going back, if our parents didn't accept us or aspects about ourselves, like that's ultimately what it comes down to, that now can we be the parent to ourselves for those aspects that we didn't feel accepted for, and be in a practice of deep self-acceptance that creates this stronghold that we can move throughout the world, whatever the space we're in, and feel good and feel secure.
Gosh, this makes me think too. I love that when there's like a crack in your self acceptance, your authenticity, everyone can smell it, right?
Yes.
And so I think about, I like recently talking to a friend of mine who is, just so beautiful and has all these like incredible things going for her. However, doesn't have her purpose, doesn't know it yet, hasn't discovered it yet. Also, like always looking to style and influence to fit into these molds still. And I feel like when you start to really do this work and you really get in touch with your authentic self and you really figure out the four pillars of your authentic code, and you figure out even this authentic persona of self that you can come back to, that's when you start to discover your real purpose, your real expression of self, your real relation, like what you want out of relationships. I see my single friends, most of the shit they're seeking is again just like programming from movies and social media and celebrity, whatever, just like very non-concrete, authentic stuff. And so it's interesting. I think the more you get on the journey and figure out your authentic self and you start really living from that place, even if you have to put all these tools together like we're going to do in this challenge, at the end of it, I really do think you start to figure out, wait, this is my purpose. Wait, this is how I express myself. Wait, this is what I want. These are the things I want in life. I know this is pretty rudimentary TBM stuff, but it's interesting. Even people who have been doing it for a long time, still, if they don't know their purpose yet, it's like, I don't think you fully found your authentic self if you don't know your purpose yet. And that doesn't mean the quintessential version of what success looks like in society. I'm saying your purpose, what you're living and dying for each day, the things that light you up, that road you're down, that's not trying to still prove to your parents or high school or whomever that you're worthy of something.
Could you guys describe a little bit about when you think about your purpose? And I like that we're broadening that, because so many people relate purpose with career path. That's just one piece of it. That's one little tiny thing. And your purpose might actually have nothing to do with your career path. So when you feel connected to your purpose, how would you describe that? What sensations, what does it feel like? What does the overarching theme feel like when you're connected to purpose?
Yeah, so for me, it's many different things. So it's saving animals, it's nurturing my children the most authentically magnetic way possible. Like, number one important thing in my life right now is showing up for them. Like, that is a massive purpose of mine. Expression of creativity, so like through design is just like so purposeful to me. Nailing the right color with this thing and wallpaper and blah. It's like the creativity is purpose to me. Whenever I see that I can help somebody, I detach a lot from this now because it feels really exhausting, like a heavy lift after doing this work for so long. But when I see someone so clearly of how they could be further in their purpose and I'm able to share just the tiniest thing with them that will help them on that journey, that's purpose. And you'll notice that I don't mention my career in any of those things. Like my career is a combination of all of those things. Especially when I was just one and to be magnetic, let's put it that way. I was designing every single thing for it. I was taking every single photograph for it. I was writing every piece of content for it. But now when I look at my purpose, it's so many things. And I guess it gets back to, Jessica, like letting what lights you up inside be your barometer, be your compass, you know? What about you guys?
Yeah, it's interesting. It feels like ultimately purpose feels like bringing my full self and my deepest connection to self to literally whatever's happening in front of me. Because my career could go away, and I'm like, no, I still would feel purposeful and moving through the world. So that's, yeah, it does feel like a connection of self, of not to be cheap, but like to be you wherever you are. And then in that, there's a really deep connection to purpose. Even in the mundane, it's like you're just showing up in your full self to wherever you are.
I relate purpose to like a magnetic pull to something.
Ah, love that.
You cannot escape it. It is pulling towards you. You might distract yourself for a season of life or a chapter, but it is pulling at you. It's like if you had a free day to do whatever you want, you would wind up doing a piece of this. You just can't get away from it. And this is where I feel like people have that internal dissonance is they try to stuff it down because they think that their purpose is not what they should be doing or won't make them money or won't make them happy or that's just a hobby or whatever. And it rears its ugly head because it comes back and it's like, you're ignoring me. This is part of your soul's purpose. Why are you leaving this behind? It feels like a pull, like a really positive, beautiful, like coming from the heart pull.
Agreed.
And you want to do it, and it's fun. And usually some of those are the reasons like, well, it's too exciting and it's too fun, so therefore I shouldn't do it. It's like, no, you're meant to be excited and lit up by it.
It's so interesting because definitely one aspect of my purpose, at least at this season in this moment, is figuring out like, okay, if this is someone's problem, like these are all the tools that are available. What's the best tool? How do we like anchor down to the best tool and crafting that moving forward? And I remember working in TV and film. I would write little psychology reports for my friends to be like, wow, I'm noticing this pattern and blah, blah, blah. Like I had
I love
nothing to
it.
do with that field, wasn't in psychology, but yet I was doing that for my friends. I was trying to figure out the best tool. I was trying to figure out the best tool from my therapist at the time. I was reading psychology books. I was pulled. It was an interest of mine. Like I could not escape that interest, that passion. And it's interesting, you know, if anyone's feeling like, okay, I have that, but like that doesn't look like my career. It doesn't have to look like your career. Keep following it. And then maybe at one point they'll overlap, but maybe they won't. And just keep allowing space to evolve into that. I mean, following that passion is what allowed me to find the tools of TBM, which then led to career. You never know how it's going to look and don't force it to move that direction. But if that passion is there, like keep following it, keep going with it.
Yeah, it's simultaneous with me as well. I would have to say that all of the training I did in acting, you know, which was mostly Sandy Meisner, it's like really, really understanding moment to moment, catching what someone's feeling, what's going on, figuring out the spine of the character. What are their problems? What are their wants? What are their needs? I would have to say that that probably was my greatest work out of any fucking book I've read on shadow or inner child or anything of how to understand people. And then now it's really interesting, even with, you know, the project I'm on escrow, and I've been waiting I would have to say like my entire adult life to be able to redo a Victorian home. It's all I ever watch. It's what I'm engaged in. I come from a town that's Gold Rush Victorian. I've always been obsessed with it. It's deep now. I'm like, the family. This is what they would have done in the day. This is what they would have eaten. And so it's like to bring all of that, infuse all of that into a space isn't very different than like breaking down something at To Be Magnetic. So it goes to show that, like you're saying, yeah, those magnetic poles are what leads you to all of probably the most interesting things you do in life. whether it's career or relationship or travel or whatever, following that authentic pull. It's your essence. It's the soul, the spirit of you that took this body, is like literally being like, could you just get out of the way and follow me?
There are only a few short months left in 2024. And one of the things we love to do here at To Be Magnetic is to take our entire community through a challenge where we can understand and integrate everything that we have learned, the patterns we may have missed, the themes and the lessons that we've needed to integrate from this year, and really double down on who we authentically are at this season in life, and then craft our manifestation lists for 2025 with intention. And that is exactly what we're going to be doing, kicking off on November 4th. And the best news of all, our membership is on sale right now. You can get over 20% off the TBM Pathway membership and get full access to not only all of our challenges, but all of our workshops and our entire Deep Imagining libraries. Our Deep Imaginings are self-hypnosis audios that will take you into a deep theta state where you can access your subconscious thoughts, memories, and beliefs and overwrite them into new empowering ones. So if you've been on the fence and listening to the podcast and thinking about joining, this is your sign. Join with the sale, get the lowest prices of the season, and lock in your membership before we kick off our challenge. Make 2025 the year that you really honor yourself and manifest what you actually authentically want. Join with our sale, and we cannot wait to see you in there. Check out the link in the show notes or go to tobemagnetic.com, and you can find the sale prices on the main website. We have some really good exercises in week 2 and week 3 of the challenge about really sitting with self-accepting and validating the parts of you that maybe didn't get that validation, really witnessing our inner child and sitting with it. And I think that's going to be so, so huge in that self-acceptance piece. But I wanted to touch a little bit on some of the kind of nuances of self-acceptance. And Janelle, you and I had talked about this too, but so there's self-acceptance of things we can't change about ourselves, right? Maybe our height, or if we are neurodivergent, or if we have a certain background or upbringing, how accepting those things that we cannot change and actually seeing those differences as our superpower, seeing those nuances as our superpower, as our gift. I say this all the time to Daniel because he has ADHD and he struggles with really trying to fit into the more traditional schooling system of how he should work. And I'm like, man, once you really give yourself permission to just work the way you need to work, you are going to be
Skyrocket.
unstoppable.
Yeah, totally.
But he's in his own journey. He's getting there. But I'm like, that's your superpower. The way your brain works like that, create a whole new paradigm of how people need to work and operate. So many people could utilize it. So back to purpose, using these things to guide your authentic purpose. And then there's those things that we know do not align with us. The numbing behaviors, if we're projecting on someone, deflecting, compliments, if we're participating in toxic behaviors or gossip or whatever, we're doing those things that we don't feel like align with our true self. They don't align with our values. They feel almost icky after you do them. You're like, oh, why did I just say that? Or why did I, go into that? Meeting that with compassion and acceptance that, okay, that didn't feel good. I don't want to do that. And it's okay to want to change. The acceptance in that route isn't, okay, well, I'm just someone who gossips. Like, if it doesn't feel good, don't do it.
Or look at why you're doing it and shift that, unblock that and get into alignment. Yeah.
And then there's accepting the things that we think will make us good enough. it's like the stipulations on your self-acceptance. I'll accept myself when I manifest that partner. I'll accept myself when I have the career I want or the dream home or the friend group or whatever. It's like conditional self-acceptance. We all do it. We've all been there at one chapter or not in our life. How can we take that good enough, or I have to be this to accept myself? I mean, the dichotomy is when you accept yourself, you get the thing. But
Yeah.
how can you actually accept yourself without the thing, knowing that the thing is not what you need to worry about connecting with? And then the last piece I was noticing was things that we love, but we know others won't. Or, if our family is super religious in one aspect, and then we're actually going to say, no, I like this path instead. And we know that they're likely going to have a hard time with it. How can we accept ourselves, even though the outside group that you're around isn't going to give you that support or validation? That's almost one of the hardest ones, is when you're in a group or a family or a dynamic where you're like, oof, I know I'm going to face resistance. I'm going to be tested on this. But that's actually going to be your biggest points of magnetism, is when you can hold your center and set those boundaries with those people despite it. What do you guys think on all of these little nuances?
I've been geeking out studying more neurodivergent lately, like just reading books and all that. And with the ADHD specifically, one thing I think is so freaking cool. So ADHD brains have this ability to hyper focus in a way that neurotypicals can't for hours. And it's motivated by what lights them up. Now, when it's a task that they're not interested in, even if they're mentally like, I want to do it, it's like, they can't because it doesn't light them up. So it's this really amazing. I mean, it's hard. There's some challenges with it, no doubt, but it's a really incredible like barometer of what their authenticity is. It's just innate in their way of moving through the world, which I think is just fascinating.
It's like ultimate generator energy in human
100%.
design.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really, really cool.
I also think that's all of our goals. We're all supposed to be functioning like that. We just don't, we have a little bit more programming to stay the course with other things, but that's ultimately the goal of everything you just went through. Gosh, like everything you just covered you kind of covered the path to authenticity. Even to the point of which like community doesn't understand you or could die off. Like that's going to be something that's going to happen to many people during this challenge. It's just the way it rolls. The more you become yourself, the more you go, oh, fuck, my community's not in alignment anymore because I haven't been in alignment with myself. I'm going to get into alignment with myself. And the crab shell analogy comes forward. And that's when a lot of community starts to peel off. Maybe we'll find you again or whatever, and there will be a big lonely moment in between, but that's just how this works. And I think that the persona piece is so interesting to go back to at any point that you're not able to be authentic showing up. Figure out who your authentic thing is that you can root into. So again, getting back to the authentic code, it's an amazing, like a persona, it's an amazing filtration system. I filter everything through that. Do I go to this event? Do I do this thing? Do I talk to this? Is this a space that even makes sense for what I'm doing? And as you mentioned, Jessica, in the beginning, I used to do it for everything. I made a commitment to myself like a year ago. I don't even do press anymore. I don't like it. Unless it's like, let's hop on and talk about familiars or something. There's no thing inside of me authentically anymore that needs to be loved, to be seen in some sort of a press piece. You know what I mean? So it's just, I think everything you covered, we're on the journey to in this challenge. That's literally what we're all about to dig into.
I want to say something to the person that is in this challenge that is like, I want to show up authentically to my family or old group of friends or whatever. And they know that the difference in the nuance when it's like, this is who I am now, and you're like, that they're not going to be accepted. The difference of when it's magnetic to do that versus when it might actually be for lack of a better word, self-harm, and you actually go, I'm actually not gonna open myself up to what I think about XYZ because I know this person's not safe and I'm gonna get eaten alive. And like, it's more of a boundary thing. The difference of like, what's a healthy boundary around kind of protecting your authenticity versus when it's magnetic to go, well, I'm into this now,
Mhm.
and it's going to be situation to situation, but I want to name that for someone that's like maybe in a test of that there is a place to have permission to not share and that actually is a coming from a place of self-love, and that actually makes you very magnetic. That is passing a test.
Yeah, I think that that's actually applicable, Janelle, to everything we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what I had brought up at the beginning, where it's like, and you just named it perfectly, not safe environments, opportunities,
Yeah.
tests, whatever, having a set of tools, knowing that, like for myself, when I know I'm going to be in an environment that A, I don't even desire to be in, it's not going to feel safe. I probably won't be my authentic self in it. I don't fucking put myself in that environment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not me like
Yeah.
dodging authenticity. That's actually me commanding authenticity. And that I would say that that's arguably for every single aspect of your life, like giving you that licensing. And yeah, starting to have tools around that. For me, saying no is hard now, really just to people close to me. It's very hard. So yeah, I think that's really important to talk about and to tell people about during this journey that someone's about to go on. It's a journey. And that goes for everything in manifestation. Like if you're not fully there yet in your authenticity, in your boundaries, you haven't done the unblocking, you don't have to. We talk about this in the boundary workshop all the time. Saying your boundary with your words means nothing unless you have changed it on an unconscious, subconscious level. The loop that continues to attract this overstep of boundary in your life. So it goes for the same of really being on this authentic self journey. If you don't feel like you're there yet, you're rooted and grounded and strong enough in it yet, being able to not express something or not go to something or not say yes to something is a version of being authentic.
I love that you name this too, because I think there's this other dynamic. It's almost like that we have those blind spot archetypes, that discerner type that preemptively says no, but this is kind of a variation of it, where once someone discovers their authenticity and they don't fully accept it yet, but they are looking to learn how to accept themselves, they try to get validation from other people that their authentic self is good enough. They're on the right track. They can keep going with that version of self. And so it's almost like when you're not, like Lacy's saying, fully rooted in accepting yourself, you then might be like, well, by the way, I'm this, or by the way, I like this, or I don't know why I'm thinking like I'm a painter now or whatever. And you still feel like kind of embarrassed or scared, and you are really needing their approval in order to accept yourself. That's where it's like, okay, let's take a pause, check in before I'm sharing with this person. Okay, is this a person that I feel safe around? Am I trying to get their validation? Am I asking them just so they can validate my own self-acceptance? Or do I need to really sit with my own self-acceptance first?
And I would say when you're deeply self-accepted, you're not going to try to convince someone who you know is not going to self-accept you to accept you.
No,
Yes.
no, you're not going to waste the time.
You're not going to waste your time. Yeah.
And in self-accepting, you can accept their differences. You can accept, okay, I don't agree with that, or that's not my truth, but I can see that that's your truth, and I don't need to change you and you don't need to change me. You're able to have that true understanding, that true compassion for yourself and others, part of your magnetic self.
Completely. Yeah, agreed.
Oh my gosh, so good. Well, I'm very excited for the challenge. We'll have this archetype essence part of the challenge here, and you guys can kind of put those personas on and get inspired, I feel like we need to have a list of different persona options so people can start to get inspired about what they are. I'm like, ooh, okay, who would I be? What would it be? How could I distill it down? I'm excited for you guys. It's going to be a huge shift, a huge moment, a connection to purpose. There are so many good tools to give you guys on this journey. And it's not a perfect one. There will still be moments where you're like, dang, okay, that one, got to do a little more work there. But that's part of the process. There's no like, I have arrived and everything is glorious. It's just peeling back more and more and more of those layers. And it's almost like a muscle, that trust muscle to trust yourself, to trust your authenticity. It's going to be so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Thank
Good
you
luck.
guys.
We'll be in there with you.
Yeah.
Yes. I hope you all enjoyed that episode. I just want to share a recent testimonial story. If you guys are having any manifestations or kismet things come through, don't forget to send them to our SpeakPipe recording messenger so we can help expand the community. It is so powerful when we hear these stories. So here is one member's.
Hey, my name is Megan. I've been doing the To Be Magnetic work for on and off a few years now. On my 29th birthday this year of May 2024, I decided to start taking it very seriously. And immediately some many manifestations started coming in. About 10 years ago, I got a 4-leaf clover tattoo just because I felt called to. And once I started doing this work, 4-leaf clovers just started popping up everywhere. I probably have about 30 in my collection. For my actual little mini manifestation, I've been going to a specific yoga studio for about 4 years now. The moment I stepped into that studio, my life changed. The classes are quite expensive. So once I started doing this work, I put on my manifestation list a free class to this studio. I ended up shortly thereafter winning a free class. A couple months later, I ended up winning 10 free classes. And a few weeks ago, after making the decision to end a unhealthy relationship situationship dynamic, I went to a class. I was the first on the wait list. There was a father and a daughter behind me. They only had spots for 2 people, so I would have been in, and then one of them would have been able to go in. I let them have my spot so they could go in together. And the next morning, I woke up to a $100 gift card from this father and daughter just for letting me have their spot. So it's been incredible. And thank you so much for changing my life and bringing all these beautiful things into my life.